We're going to start a new shir today, Maimer Yud Beis, page Tzadik Beis. Okay, so we are starting it's a new section. Again, we're still in Sanhedrin Daf Tzadik Zayin Amud Aleph, right? We spent a whole bunch of times about the the previous Gemaras, right? About truth and about Malchus, and then we're going to be talking about again about Malchus. Okay, but this is the last of the shiurim in the book about Dorsha ben Yisha, Shem ben David Ba. Okay, and after this we'll start a totally new sugya. Okay, but anyway, but this is the last of the shiurim, but it's the next piece of the Gemara. So let's read the Gemara. Hello, Misha. We're on page Tzadik Beis, Maimer Yud Beis, page Tzadik Beis. Okay, Tana Rabbana. Okay, so the Gemara quotes a brisa. So the pasuk says, we're darshaning a pasuk in Parshas Hazinu. Okay, if you want to look up the pasuk, we're going to quote the pasuk, but the pasuk is in Perek Lamed Beis, pasuk Lamed Vav, right, 36, towards the end of the Shiras Hazinu, and the pasuk reads as follows. I'll read the whole pasuk because it's not all quoted here, because the first half is not quoted here. It says, Ki adina Shem Amo. Right? Ve'al avadav yisnechom. That's the first half of the pasuk, and the second half of the pasuk is what we're going to darshan here. Ki yir'eh ki ozlas yod ve'efes atzur ve'azuv. Okay, so the first part of the pasuk is easier to translate. I took the only English translation I have of the Chumash in my house, the old Sansino. So I'll just read from there. For the Lord will judge his people and repent himself for his servants. Evidently, it means that he will, right, instead of punishing them, he will, according to Rashi, he will change his way of dealing with them, and as if Hashem is repenting. But then the next part of the pasuk is very unclear, very enigmatic. Ki yir'eh ki ozlas yad. He sees that ozlas yad. So yad is a hand, right? Right? And so he sees, here the translation, it says that their stay is gone, but I don't know how they got that, because ozlas yad, their hand is gone. Ozal, as we know from Aramaic, means to go, and evidently it does have a cognate in Hebrew, Lashon Kodesh. Ki yir'eh ozlas yad, he will see that the hand is gone, ve'efes atzur ve'azuv. Efes means nothing. Atzur, there's nothing remaining. Atzur ve'azuv. Atzur, so here he translates it shut up, meaning locked in, like, or azuv, right, which is left at large. There's something which is closed in is atzur, something which is free to go is azuv. Okay, we'll see how we darshan this pasuk because it's not at all clear what it means. Okay, so let's read it inside now in the text of Rabbi Moshe Sefer, Tzadik Beis. Tana Rabbanan, right? Ki yodin Hashem amo, etc. Ki yireh ki ozlas yad ve'efes atzur ve'azuv. Says the Gemara, the Brisa. Ein ben David ba ad sheyirbu hamasoros. So 4 things here are listed that will happen, or that need to happen, or that will happen before Mashiach comes. Right? Yirbu hamasoros. What are masoros? We'll see, right? We'll see right away. Rashi. Actually, look at the Rashi because underneath in the text we have the Rashi, right? So, right? Yadin Hashem amo, right? Right? Lahavi lachem geula. So Rashi says Yadin Hashem amo means that here he'll judge you favorably. That's one of the pshatim in the Chumash. Yadin Hashem amo lahavi lam geula. When God judges you to bring the geula. Ki yir'eh ki ozlas yad. Right, because he will see, or when he sees, ki ozlas yad. So here the translation is, shetelech v'techazak yodon shel masoros. So masoros is a moser, somebody who is a malshin, somebody who gives over the secrets of others, especially if he gives it over to the malchus, he gives it over to goyim. Umatzlichim b'malshinusam, and they will be successful in being malshin, successful in telling tales about other people, right? Reporting people, right? right, for infractions of the rules or things like that, right? Right? Sheter v'tel diyaron shel maseres u'matzlichin bil malshinusan, and they'll be matzliach in their malshinus. So the Masoros are the people who are giving over to the Goyim, telling bad things about the Jews to the Goyim. Okay, that's the Malshinos. So that's number one. You're born Masoros. There'll be a lot of Masoros, a lot of people telling about other people, tattling. Dover Acher, second thing, Ad Yismatu HaTalmidim. The second thing is the Ben David are going to come until the Talmidim become fewer. Talmidim, says Rashi, in the second line of the Rashis, Sheyismatu Talmidim, Shemachzikin Yedei Yisrael, right? They're the ones who hold, they're the ones who maintain the hands of the Jews, right? Yedei Yisrael, Lachzir Lamutav, to bring them back to Tshuva, but there's not going to be so many people who are going to be doing that anymore. There'll be few, Meismatu Talmidim. Shetichle Pruta, right? And the third thing is, right, Dover Acher, Tichle Pruta Menakis, right? Pruta, there won't be coins in the pocket. People will be poor. People won't have any prutas in their pocket. V'hainu ozlas yad, and this is ozlas yad, sheyu biyadayim rekonios, that they'll have empty hands. That's number three. If you notice in the text of Rav Moshe, if you have it in front of you, right, that he highlights the word yadan in each of the commentaries, right? In other words, right, yadan shel masoras, that's one, and the second one is Yedei Yisrael, right? Machzikin Yedei Yisrael, that's number two, and the third one is Azlas Yad Sheyu B'Yadayim Rekonios. That's the number three. Right? Then it says number four is Dover Acher Ad Sheyisyashu Min Haguula. Right? The Jew, right? The Ben David won't come until the Bnei Yisrael are misyayish. Right? They give up hope of having a geula. Then, right, when we give up hope of having a geula, so then the geula will come. Shenemar, and here we're quoting the pasuk again. Ve'efes otzur ve'ozuv kaviyochol, and here Rashi translates kaviyochol ke'ilu yecholi lomar davar zeh klapi ma'al, as if we could say such a thing about a Kodesh Baruch Hu. Ein somech ve'ozer liYisrael. There is nobody to support and help the Jewish people. Okay? And that's what it means, right? Ve'efes otzur ve'ozuv. There won't be anybody to help and support. Ki hoder Reb Zera. And now the Gemara says a very interesting thing. Right? When he found the rabbis, the teacher, the students who were involved in the stories of the cheshbonos of the coming of the Mashiach, they're talking when's Mashiach going to come, etc. Omar lahu, he said to them, "B'metusa, please, be'ina minaycho, I'm requesting of you, lo terchakuha, do not push the Mashiach away." Do not push him further. The Tanina, because we learned three things come with hesach hadas. Three things come when you're not really looking for them, right? When you're distracted about something else. Eluhain, and these are them, right? Moshiach, Metzia, right? You find the Metzia comes with hesach hadas, right? We're not looking for something, and all of a sudden you find something valuable that you want to keep. Ve'akrov, and the third thing that comes with hesach hadas is a scorpion. Right? A little incongruous there, but okay. But anyway, those are the three things that when you get bit by a scorpion, you should know that it comes from somewhere that you weren't expecting. Okay. And that says Rashi in the bottom, right? Right. Ein ozer ve'ein somech liYisrael, says Rashi. Sheyu shvelim l'ma'od. They'll be very lowly, very very downtrodden. V'omer ein ozer ve'somech yu misyashim en ha'geula. Right, and then the last piece is the Ma'askibe, the Rabbanim who were involved with Mashiach, Leida Mosai Yavo, to know when is Mashiach coming. The Akrov, what's the scorpion? No Sheikh Ha'odam Pisom. He bites suddenly. That's something which comes suddenly. Okay. So let's start. That's the Gemara and Rashi. HaGemara ba'al lidrosh et ha'pasuk ki yadin Hashem avo v'adav yisnecham ki yek yadosel v'efes ozer v'zof v'pirish hamilim ozlas yad Shehayad halcha ve'inena. The yad is gone. That's ozlas yad. It's gone. The Gemara mefareshet begimel ofani. The Gemara explains in three different ways Et mahut hayad she'aleh medabrim. What yad are we talking about? Umashma barashi, right? Shagimel biurim arishonim. We said there were four, right? The three first explanations of what the word yad means. Heim stadim v'ofanim shonim shel oz las yad. Right? Those are different ways of understanding the words oz las yad. Mandi Omar Acharon, and the last opinion, shesover she'ein ben David ba'at she'yashu ben agula lo meidezem misofa pasuk v'efes atzur v'yazuv, means that there will be no support, means that the Jewish people will be so downtrodden that they won't even be thinking anymore about the possibility of geula. They'll have forgotten about it. And it says here that the more we are mityaesh, the more we do not deal with that. Okay. And again, in the next section, right, I say this is the last section about the Ben David. In the next section, Rav Moshe is going to go into great detail, right, trying to resolve the issues of when is it appropriate to think about Mashiach and figure out when he's going to come, when it's not. Because we know that there were Rishonim, right, going back to the times of the Gaonim and Rishonim and Achronim, right, a lot of them had opinions and cheshbonos of when the Mashiach is going to come, and we have to solve the issue of why was it an okay thing to do? But that's not the issue right now. That's right. We're going to be dealing with right now with the first three, with the inyan of yad. Then the next shurim will be about the inyan of thinking about and calculating when the Mashiach comes. It says, okay, so Ben David ba lahashiv et koach hayad. The point is that the Mashiach is going to replenish, or to reinstate, to return the koach of the yad. In other words, the yad is going to be lost. That's ozlas yad. The yad is going to be completely weakened, and there will be no koach in the hand. And Mashiach will come. Right? Ben David is going to come to say, okay, now that the hand has reached its lowest point, so then it's now time to bring it back to life. Okay, so now what is yad? So Rav Moshe gives three definitions of yad: rishus, hachzaka, and basis. Okay, and he explains what these things are. Univayir divrei Gemara al pi Akdama. He says, Rav Moshe said, we're going to explain the Gemara first we have to have an introduction. Hine ba'alma yesh gimel inyanim haklulim b'shem yad. He says there are at least, in the footnote later he's going to bring a fourth, but he brings here three because these are going to correspond to the three first things that are items that we mentioned earlier. Right? So there are three aspects of the word yad. Right? Aleph, yad hu rishuto shel adam. Right? It's what a person, his space and what he possesses, what's in his possession. Koloshon pasuk, as the pasuk says, vayikach et kol artso miyado. It says in the Milchamas of Sichon and Og, right, it says that Am Yisrael took all of his land from his hand. Okay, so yad obviously doesn't mean a physical hand. Yad means from his possession. Right before the king of Sichon had the land, and now he doesn't have it. We took it away from him. So yad is possession. Right. And then Rav Moshe relates this to the idea that whatever a person receives, whatever shefa, right, you receive or you give to others, is in the hand. Pasuk, poseach es yadecha u'masbiel l'chol chai ratzon. Say that 3 times a day. Right? What is poseach es yadecha? Yadecha means it's the reshus of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is the source of all blessing. V'chein, right? Another pasuk in Megillah Esther, v'yein malchus at the beginning of the Megillah, v'yein malchus yad hamelech. Right, what is ki yad hamelech? What does it mean? The hand of the king. Right, the king is very wealthy, so he is able to provide lots of wine. Right, so yein malchus rov kamelech. V'chein v'yitain also in the Megillah v'yitain maseis ki yad hamelech. He gave gifts. Kashir hakavana hu sheyutan b'shefa rav. Just because the king has a big reshut, right, and therefore he's going to give it over. Yad hu gam davar shemachzik. It's the second thing. Bet. Yad hu gam davar shemachzik. Something that holds things. Muchzakut. In other words, if you have you hold it in your hand, or you're holding it. The first thing is the possessions, things that you own, things that are under your control, right? In general, but not physically. Here we're talking about something that holds. Koloshon HaPasuk, as the Pasuk says, Vayigzol et hachanit miyad HaMitzri. He sold the spear for the sword, right? The spear from the hands of the Egyptian, right? And so therefore, that's miyad, from the hands of, literally. It's something he's holding on. Yad hu gam b'china shel yesod ubasis. It's the foundation and the basis. She'alav ani mitkayem v'nismach. That upon that I rely upon. I'm leaning on it. This is what gives me stability in existence. Kilashon pasuk, the pasuk says, "V'nasati lem beveisi v'chomasai yad v'shem tov mibanim v'nos." What does it mean, yad v'shem? I will give those. It says in the pasuk there. Right, we're going to be reading this on Tuesday in the Haftorah for the fast day of Asar B'Teves. Right, I will give them in their hand, in my home, and my walls, and my fortified places. Yad v'shem. Right? A place, and that's where they took the name Yad Vashem in Yerushalayim. Right? It's a place which is going to be a support for them, right? A place of a name for them, a support for them. They're going to have a kiyum, right? And they're not going to be just forgotten. So now he says the three things that we learned about that the Gemara says are going to disappear are going to be correspond to these three things. We can explain what the three perushim of the Gemara are. Aleph, right? He goes not in the order of the Gemara, but in the order of the of what we just said. Tichle pruta min akis, and he says tichle pruta min akis. There won't be any money left in people's pockets. Zeh hapegia b'rishuto shel adam. This reshut, right? Dahainu shekavanat haGemara lo reshut tiyeh reikanit nikol, right? Your reshut is going to be empty. You're not going to have anything, right? Right. Normally, our reshut we have possessions, and we're not going to have any owner. We're not going to have any possessions. We're not going to have any property. We're not going to have anything. We're not going to even have any money in our pockets to go to the store to buy groceries, right? V'yitbatel kol inyan shel balut, right? And ownership is going to be, right? You're not going to be able to own anything because you're not going to be able to buy anything. You're not going to be everything will be bought. So he says, "Lo medabrim po al ashirim." I'm about the rich people. Al Yisrael b'chalut. Yisrael is going to become, in some form, very impoverished. Right? Hopefully, I don't know. Maybe we passed that stage already later, but we'll see. Right? Okay. Bet. Right. So the first one was tichla pruta menachis. That goes. That's the Keneged Rishus. Bet, Yirbu HaMesorot, right? The Mesorot, right? The people who give over other Jews, right? Who tell and are malshin and say lashon hara about them. Zeh, the holding of things. The kasher yesh mosrim. When there's Muslim who can take away what I have, so then there's no meaning to the fact that I'm holding on to something, right? Because they can just be taken away from me because somebody was going to go and tell the king that I stole or that I didn't pay my taxes or something like that, and then or whatever I possess, even if I have it legally, they're going to come and talk about me and say that I have too much, and they'll take it away from me. And maybe when reminded when the communists, the Bolsheviks took over in Russia in 1917. Right? So people who were rich meant nothing. Right, the next minute, right, they canceled all the currency. All the people had suitcases full of rubles, and a minute later it was they were poor, were destitute people, right? Because that's going to be bottled too. So the whole idea of having something in your hand, right, it doesn't mean anything. And the third thing is Achit matu atalmidim hamechuvan bazeh sheitbatel habasis. Right? What's the base, the foundation, which is the Torah hamekayem otano, right? Makbil, and this is parallels in the beginning of the sugya that we already learned. Right? That there'll be fewer Talmidei Chachamim v'ashar einehem kalot b'yagon v'anacha, and the rest their eyes will be will go out with sadness and tears and sighing. Okay, that's in general. So Moshe is saying, yeah, the important thing here is that we're focusing on the word yad. That's the Iker point that Moshe is saying is, and the word yad has different meanings, and Moshe is attempting to connect the three different aspects of what's going to happen before the Mashiach comes to these three different aspects of yad. We're not going to have the yad of reshus, or the yad of chazaka, or the yad of foundation and base. All of those things are not going to happen, and so the whole concept of yad is going to disappear, or it's going to become so weak that there won't be a yad. Now, what's the significance of yad? Oh, look at the next section. David b'gematria yad. Right? You never thought of that, right? Okay, David in gematria is right. It's a very easy gematria to do, right? David is 14, right? And Yad is 14. So David gematria Yad. Nimsa mevur. Shein ben David bachi yidbatel kol hagimel inyanim sheish biyad. This is what we said. All the three inyanim that appear with a Yad, right? V'yesh litzayin she'Hashem David hu begematria Yudalet, as we just mentioned. Ubehakshir l'divrei Gemara kan yesh levayer on the page. שתפקידו של משיח בן דוד להחזיר את היד. Right? So that's the whole point, is that the Mashiach is going to bring back the yad. He's going to reinstate the yad, which is the malchus. Okay, because David is malchus. Mitoch hamatzav shel ozlas yad. There's going to be an ozlas yad, and the malchus is going to become very weak and almost disappear or disintegrate. Right? And then, as a tikkun for that, there's going to be the Ben David is going to come with the tikkun, and is going to reinstate the whole concept of malchus. Al kolpanim nimsa, and in any event, we found she'be'ever hazeh hanikra yad, in this limb, which is called yad, talui churbanam ugalatam shel Yisrael. This is what the churban is dependent upon, and the geula. The churban is the loss of yad, and the geula is the reinstatement of the yad. V'adavar tzarich biur. Okay, so now, okay, so this is so far. This has been a preliminary to the main concept of the shir, and now we're getting into the body of the shir. Hakoach le'ached et rabim hu biyad. So the first thing is, and the most important, again, this is a central point here, is that yad is the ability, the power, the force, which can unite a multitude of things. Right? You put things in your hand. Your hand, right, is a closed thing which can bring things together. Okay, let's see how that works. Yad v'shem havaya. Okay, so now we're going to learn a little bit of fancier kinds of gematrias than we're used to. Right. וכדי להבין את הסוגיה צריך להקדים מה שכבר התבהר בכמה מקומות. ששורש יד נמצא בשם הוויה פשוט ומלא. Right? That the shorish of yad is found in the shem havaya in Hashem's name, pashut umalei. What is shem havaya pashut umalei? Klomar, shem havaya atzmo yesh bo dalet otiyot. Yud K Vav K, 4 letters. V'zen nikra shem pashut. V'kasher hu katuv ba'otiyot maleot. But then when you write it out fully, in other words, you write Yud instead of saying Yud K Vav K, you write Yud Vav Dalet. Right? Hey is Hey Aleph. Vav is Vav Vav. And again, Hey is Hey Aleph. So how many is that altogether? Yesh bo Yud Osios. That has 10. Okay? 3 times 3, Yud, I guess, is 5. And Vav is 7, right? And Hey is only 9. How did I get to 10? So a second. I didn't calculate this before, but it doesn't work out. Yud is 3, Hey is 5, Vav, unless they write Vav Aleph Vav or something, is that would be then 8, and then Hey again is 10. Okay, but in some way of calculating it, the Yud Hey Vav K, right, written out, has 10 letters. Ubiyachad heim yud daled. Okay. Good. So that's 14. Umavur b'chazal. So this is all Kabbalistic ideas here, right? This is taken from the Zohar, from the Tikkunei Zohar, right? Shezeu sod Yerushus HaYachid. This is the idea of Reshus HaYachid. Shetzrichim liyot gavoa asara v'rachav daled. Okay. In other words, if you have the halacha is if you're in the middle of Reshus HaRabim, you have a hill, a mound, right? If it's 10 tefachim high, right, and it has 4 tefachim, measures 4 tefachim by 4 tefachim, right? So that's called Reshus HaYachid. Okay. In other words, the Reshus HaYachid is always a minimum of area of 4 tefachim and a minimum of mechitzos of 10 tefachim. Okay, so it could be 10 tefachim of fence around your yard, or 10 tefachim of height. Okay, so it's right. So the vatam shezenirmaz biyad, right? Ki yodo shel odam yesh lo din reshus hayachid. Okay, because if I place something in your hand, even if you're standing in Reshus HaRabim, but it has a din of Reshus HaYachid. Okay. Ubemidah mesuyemet kol Reshus HaYachid bechinas yodo. Every Reshus HaYachid is like an extension of your hand. The Gemara says, right, the Gemara has a question, right? And the Gemara B'Metzia has a discussion, right? Is chotzer? We know that there's a thing called kinyan chotzer, right? If something is placed in your chotzer, or if you find something, or something is placed in your chotzer, you can make a kinyan, right? Because it's called kinyan chotzer. If it's in your property, it's called a kinyan chotzer. There's a machlokas whether chotzer mishum yadis raboy, is the chotzer an extension of your hand, or mishum shlichus is raboy, or is a chotzer like an agent that's operating on your behalf? That's a question in the Gemara. But Rav Moshe is saying is that there is such a tzad that's mishum yadis raboy, right? And so therefore, what he's saying is that the concept of yad is a place which is the ultimate reshus hayachid is your hand. Right? In other words, that's the place which is most under your control, which is most private, which is most inaccessible to the outside world. Okay? What you have in your hand. Okay. And so that's what Reshus HaYachid is. Reshus HaYachid is bounded, and it's a davar chashuv, which is 4 tvachim, and it's bounded by fences, by mechitzos. So that's so the yad is the ultimate Reshus HaYachid. Right? Just like you can't have a kinyan of Daled Amos, right? Again, because we know there's halacha that if something is within 4, if you're within 4 amos of something and you want to be konet, you can be konet. The chachamim were metaken the din d'Rabbanan that Daled Amos are konet. That if something, but that doesn't work in the Reshus HaRabim because the Reshus HaRabim is too public. So ela o b'Reshus HaYachid or kalponim b'simta, or in a side street. But in the footnote, he says, in case you're wondering what's going on here, so look at the footnote. Hey, everybody, please look down there. The footnote. Hey, so the Mechaber says, Pashut sharav po balavar in yad al pi sisrei Torah. Right? The Rav is coming to teach us yad according to the secrets of the Torah. V'lachein katan meitanu lavin et omek devarav. We're too small to understand the depth of his words. And zeh rak dugma chat ech Rabbeinu harbe pamim balavar et anyanim al pi chochmas haTorah af shelo chochmas ha'emes af shelo bir beferish. Okay, he says this is another example of Rav Moshe, right, using speaking out Kabbalistic ideas without saying that that's what he's doing. Okay, so we're not going to go into it because it's not so critical. But the idea is that, and as I say, he says it's katam eitanu. This, right? The editor here certainly knows much more Kabbalah than I do, and he says it's deeper than he can understand. So that's not our issue right now. But he's saying is that yad, again, yad is this thing which is the ultimate Reshus HaYachid. It's the place where things are, right, protected and guarded and separated from other things. This is private space. Private. This is where I privately, right? Just like your home is your castle, it's your private space, right? Your yard, if it's fenced, is your private space. Nobody can go in there. Nobody can take anything from there. So the yad is the paradigm of that, the essence of that. Okay, good. So now we have an idea that we're talking about yad, right? We're not that the fact that we're talking that ki ozlas yad, we're not talking about some insignificant concept. Right? We're talking about something which is a very fundamental thing. Okay, that's Vine benogel malchus. Because of a Rambam mitzvah mina melech, what the Rambam writes in the mitzvah to appoint a king. Shetzivanu lemanot aleinu melech Yisrael miYisrael yikabetz kol umatenu v'yanhigenu. This is very right. Moshe is fond of quoting this Rambam because the point of Malchus is yikabetz, to gather together, right? I mean, to create a single unit out of all of the individuals. All of the individuals, everybody's got his own thing, everybody's got his own life, everybody's got his own thing to worry about, and people are pulling in different directions. What's the koach which unites people, right, and gets them to work together and gets them to be willing to sacrifice for a greater cause and greater, right, and to understand that we shouldn't be looking at the world just as selfish individuals, but we should be looking at the world as we should be looking at ourselves as part of the klal. That's the tafkid of the melech. That's his responsibility. That's what he's supposed to do, and that is the concept behind melech. Yikabetz kol umatenu, to gather the whole nation, v'yanhigenu, and lead it, be the leader, right? Right, because once we've formed a unity, we become unified. So then the leader can lead this unified nation. Right? He can't lead. Right? A leader can't lead if everybody is pulling in a different direction, right? As we see in contemporary politics, right? That leaders don't work anymore. Right? It's not the same as it was when people were more together. People felt more unified, and people had common goals. Right? I mean, we would understand that the different political back in the United States when a long time ago when I was growing up, the political parties. So the basic understanding was everybody wants the same thing, right? Everybody got the same goals, right? But there's this different, differences of opinion how to get to those goals. Everybody wants prosperity. So some people say prosperity will come through, socialism or government spending, and some people say prosperity comes from that. Everybody wants security. Everybody wants strength, peace. Some people say peace comes from this way. Some people say it's a machlokas. But everybody wants the same thing. But when you get to a point where people want completely different things, we have a completely different picture of what they want to, what the final result should be. So then you don't have unity, and then you can't have leadership because there's no unified nation to lead. So that's the tafkid of the king. The tafkid of the king is to create that unity. Okay? That's the malchus. The malchus is to create the unity. In other words, it's not something that happens by itself. The hainu. So now we're just reading further. Shemahut inyano shel hamelech ze lasot et ha'am shehem ribui b'nei adam le'achad. That is what a king is all about. To take the nation, which is a ribui, right, thousands, hundreds of thousands, and millions of people, and to make them into one. V'ha'pula hazot nikret kibbutz. Right? That's the verb that's used here. Yikabetz kol umotenu. Right? All right. Of course, the Rambam wrote the Sefer Mitzvahs in Arabic, so it's hard to know exactly, which word was the precise word, but that's the word kibbutz that we have in our translation. Shehi pu'ula shel hayad. And this is an activity of the hand. Okay? All right? Hands are what gather things together. Okay? And he brings psukim on the bottom, right? Bizro'o yikabetz tlaim, right? The kovetz al yad yorbek. The yad is what gathers things together. Right? V'al anal hu mevur. So now we understand why this should be so, according to what we said before. She'inyano shel hayad liot begeder reshus hayachid. V'yado shel hamelech hu abasis lekuyum k'am k'am echad. In other words, the king's hand is the reshus hayachid, which encompasses everybody. So when everybody is when the king has when everybody the king gathers all the people together and they're in his hand, okay? Right? And when they're in his hand, they're in a single space, right? They occupy a space which is defined and set off from all other spaces, and that's what it means to gather things together. And if there's no boundaries, if everybody's just spilling all over the place and just milling around without any place to be considered one, so then there isn't any unity. So that's the connection between the two paragraphs. There is a yad of the king. The yad is the Rishus HaYachid, and that's the idea is that when the king everything enters in the king's yad, it becomes like one. Right? It's as if we could say this about HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the whole nation is like held, grabbed, right? Physically, right? Not physically, but in a way which is the king's hand. Right? When we're all in the king's hand, that means we're all in the same place and we're all in the same Rishus HaYachid, and that's the foundation of the king. So he says here, the next page, v'tafkid hazeh shel hamelech nimshach mitoch matrat ha'avodah klalit l'tikun olam b'malchus shaka. This is part of the whole general idea of what the Kodesh Baruch Hu created the world. Kodesh Baruch Hu created the Tikkun Olam with Malchus, and the Malchus of Shaka, of Kodesh Baruch Hu's Malchus, which is Lakachat et haribuy atzum sheba olam. In other words, what the king does is the king of Am Yisrael does is a representation and a miniature of what the whole purpose of creation is. The whole purpose of creation is to take all of the ribui, all of the multitude of things which HaKadosh Baruch Hu created, which are all separate, individual, and l'chorei have nothing to do with each other, and to make a unity out of them. There's to show how everything fits together. That's when at the end of days, when Vayosh, as it says, what's the pasuk? B'chinat bayoma hu yeh Hashem echad u'shmo echad. Right? That's what it means. It means that it'll be Hashem echad u'shmo echad. That means that we will see the total unification and unity of everything that exists under in the world. Everything, right? The minerals, the plants, the animals, the people, right? We'll all see how they all join together to be part of the Malchus and to proclaim the Malchus of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There won't be a single being in the world that will not be shown to see this is how part of the grand scheme, and it's all one unity. Right? It doesn't matter whether it's a little ant crawling on a floor or it's a big elephant or it's a person or whatever. It's all one big picture, and that's showing the unit. That's Hashem Echad, and that's what we say. Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. We say Shema, right? As Rashi says, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem who currently is our God, meaning he's not yet perceived to be the God of the whole world. Right? He's only so far he's only the God of the Jewish people, right? Because he's chosen us to be his representatives, his chosen people. But Hashem Echad, and when the Geula comes, when the final unity is revealed, so then it's going to be one. And then he says, "Oh, kamo shomrim gam b'tefillah." We say in Shabbos Mincha, "Ato echad v'shimcha echad v'yikam b'chisod ech ba'aretz." Right? It's all echad. Shebeli tikkun, because without this tikkun, kol hametziut she'HaKadosh Baruch Hu bara nir'eit k'ribui. Everything just looks like a big, vast multitude. V'hatachlit hi laharot et yichudo b'bria, is to show HaKadosh Baruch Hu's uniqueness and his oneness, right? In the creation. V'b'chinas ato echad, right? V'shimcha echad, right? In other words, everything is supposed to, right? And that's the point. So again, to the extent, even today, to the extent that we can grasp some kind of notion of how things fit together, right? How history fits together, how the world plan fits together, how different things work together and are not just separate things, but they make sense and then they all fit together. So in that sense, we're contributing to the final, ultimate unity of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, right? And that distinguishes, I believe, a chacham from a non-chacham, is the ability to see the unity of things and how things fit together, right? Instead of just seeing isolated pieces and just relating to this isolated piece and that isolated piece, but saying no, there's a plan, there's a pattern, I can see how things are working out in some small way. We can do it maybe on a very, very small level, but ultimately that'll be the whole thing. Cool. Now, so that's Achdus b'Metzius. Okay. Ubenogea Torah, right? Now he's going to transfer this to Torah. And this is a very important transitional paragraph, because we're going to be showing how there's a great parallel between the function of the Melech and the function of Torah. Okay. That's the parallel that they're going to be drawing here. Ubenogea Torah matzana b'tosefta Sanhedrin. Right? Tosefta says this. V'ashoel ki'inyan, v'ashoel shelo ki'inyan. Right? So there's a Tanakh. This is Reb Meir. Reb Meir says, if in the Beis Medrash, right, there's one who is asking ki'inyan, and he's asking something related to the matter that's being discussed. V'ashoel shelo ki'inyan. And there's another one who is asking about something which is not related to the matter being discussed. So then the Tanakh says, Meir, Meshivim es hashoel ke'inyan. First you answer the shoel ke'inyan. Ve'ashol shelo ke'inyan, tzarech shiomar shelo ke'inyan. Shoalti. Right? Yeah, you have to tell him you didn't ask a good question. You asked shelo ke'inyan. That's the Tanakh. Right? I think it should be shoalto instead of shoalti. Right? Divrei Rabbi Meir. Chachamim omrim, no. Ein tzarech. Shekol haTorah inyan echad. It's all one. Klomar. If somebody has something about an unrelated issue, that not the one that they're talking about, aliba de chachamim ze adayin nechshav meoso inyan. Mishum shekol haTorah inyan echad. V'zeh doma l'madisa b'Gemara. Right? He says it's similar to what we find in the Gemara. Mochar lo eser soros be'eser medinos. Okay, there's a kiven she'echzik ba'achas me'em kona es kula. Sad de arachad. Interesting Gemara. Right? Let's say you want to buy, it says here, 10 fields. Right? Reuven is buying from Shimon 10 different fields scattered around in different places in the world. So it says here, if you make, and you're kona with a chazaka, so if you're kona with one, you can be kona with one kinyan can be kona all of them. If that's your kavana, right, and it's the kavana of the makna to sell the land, and the kavana of the kona to buy the land, right, to acquire the land, that they're going to that this kinyan is going to be effective for all the other land, it works. In other words, it doesn't have to be just if I make a kinyan, a chazaka on one particular field, that's the one I can be kona, and I have to go traveling around the world to be kona all the other fields. No, right? It can be kona all of them. Why? Says the Gemara, sadna de arachadu. Sadna is the whole foundation of the world is one. The whole earth is one. Right? There's a unity. So it doesn't matter that you're buying a piece of land in Tel Aviv, and a piece of land in Yerushalayim, and a piece of land in Beersheba. It doesn't matter. Right? It's all one thing. Dahainu kol hakarka ba'olam nechshav le'achat. L'chein, im machzi bekarka kol shuhu nechshav le'machzi ba'olam. Right? If you have just one piece of land, it's just you're like you have the whole world. Uchmo chen b'Torah. This is a mashal. Yesh et ha'inyan hazeh. She'yedei kol isuk b'Torah nechshav shu machzik b'chol haTorah kula v'asachas. If a person studies whatever element of area of Torah you're studying the whole Torah, right? Because the whole Torah is connected. Right? Right? You happen to be studying, a particular, you can't. But you happen to be studying a certain element of the Torah, a certain detail of the Torah, but you're not studying. You're studying the Torah, right? You're studying. What are you doing? I'm learning Shas, right? That's what I'm doing. I'm learning Shas. I'm still on Brachos Daf Beis, and I haven't made too much progress. Beseder, but in Brachos Daf Beis, you're holding you're learning you're learning Shas. That's what you're doing, right? And you're holding the whole Torah. Okay, okay. So we've established that that we have the Malchus. We have the what the Melech does. Melech creates a unity, and Torah is a unity. That's what we have here. והכוח הזה של האחדות שמתגלה בתורה, נוגע באמת לכל הנמצאים כולם, ולכל הבריא כולה. Right? It has to do with with everything. אלא שכדי לגלות את זה, but in order to reveal this, להחזיר את הכל לאחד, צריך את נפשו המיוחדת של דוד המלך. In other words, you need that special nefesh of David who's capable of doing it. Not everybody can do it. Right? In other words, in order to, you need a certain power of, like a klolistic nefesh. Right? Like Moshe Rabbeinu was a klolistic nefesh. David HaMelech is a klolistic nefesh. It's a nefesh klali. Right? He has, right? Everybody's a part of David HaMelech, so to speak. Everybody's a part of and he can hold everybody in his hand. שהוא המלך של ישראל, והוא המלך של משיח, שיקבץ את אומתנו וינהיגנו. Okay, I think we'll stop here, right? Because I don't want to start the next section. We have a small crowd today. Mr. Shem, next week we'll be back to fuller strength. But and also my voice is not going to hold out much longer. So Beseder, so Mr. Shem will end here, and Mr. Shem will see everybody next week. Okay. Kol Tuf, be well. Okay, be well. Next time, ask questions. Okay. Beseder.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.